about segmentation and positioning. All right, segmentation is a very important topic in marketing. Segmentation and positioning. Segmentation is when we divide a market into submarkets. So we're looking for markets, we're looking for segments that are large, reachable, and have similar needs and wants. So we're talking about segmentation. We're taking a large market and we're dividing it into small segments. Well, relatively small segments relative to the whole. But we're still trying to find segments that are large, reachable, and have similar needs and wants. What do you think we mean when we say similar needs and wants? What is it that we're trying to identify? We're trying to identify commonality within the segments. Because what we're trying to do is be efficient in our marketing. So we want to find segments that we can efficiently communicate with. That's what we're talking about when we say reachable. Remember last time we talked about frequency and reach? We said that reach is how many people we're able to communicate with. So the quantity of people, that's reach. So that's a very important component of advertising and marketing, is reach. And then the frequency is how many times we're able to expose them to our commercial, to our print ad, to our radio spot. So very often, depending on our budget, the amount of money we have available to spend on advertising, we're going to have to make a decision as to whether we're going to focus on reaching a lot of people very frequently or infrequently, or reaching few people but reaching them a lot of times. Now, as a rule of thumb, in advertising, we try to reach our target audience with a frequency between 6 and 8. That's sort of like the minimum requirement. Why is that? Why is it not enough to reach our target audience, let's say, only one time? Because there's a relationship between how many people we reach and the cost. And there's a relationship between how many times they're exposed to our commercial and our cost. So if we want to reach our target audience a lot of times, like 8 times, 10 times or more, then it's going to be quite expensive for us, especially on television. So we're going to have to decide, is it better to reach fewer people but reach them more times? So in other words, is it better to reach 200 million people? Is it better to reach 200 million people one time? Like during the Super Bowl, for example? If we have a new product that we're introducing, is it better to introduce that product during the Super Bowl where we might expose our target audience to our commercial one time? Or is it better to reach, instead of 200 million people, reach 20 million people, but reach them 10 times? What do you think, based on what we just talked about? What do you think would be better?
The second one.
Which is what?
10 times.
Yeah, reach fewer people, but reach them more times. Why? Why is that so important, the frequency? Like you might say, well, I get it, reach. Yeah, we need to reach a lot of people. I got that. But then frequency, you say, why? Why is it once enough? Why does it need to be 6 times or 8 times or 10? Go ahead, Brandon.
Because it gets hardwired into your brain. And then you just automatically think, you know what, I think I want that product because I've seen this so many times and it just speaks to me.
And so, absolutely, so we want to make sure that our target audience is processing the message, right? They need to learn the message. So there's something that we're saying in our commercial. We know what that is. Now we need to get the people who are seeing the commercial to learn that message. Go ahead, Yana.
Also, usually the products that are being offered, you think you don't need them, but if you keep seeing the advertisement over and over again, you start thinking how it can affect you in your everyday life, and then you want it.
Yeah, so you're going to start to understand that maybe you have a problem that that product or service can solve. And quite a few commercials use that problem-solution format. They show a certain situation or a circumstance that's a problem, what they anticipate is a problem for their target audience, and then offer their product or service as a solution. So they might show, for example, they might show like my picture, and then you're like trembling in your seat, like, oh my God, like OMG, like I can't escape this man, right? And then they're like, grow a full head of hair in 2 weeks, right? So they show you like the problem, right? Bald, and then they say, but we have the solution. Drink this bottle of green stuff every day, and you too will have a full head of hair. So that's very common in advertising, that they show a certain problem and then a solution. And what else? You were going to add something about frequency? Somebody else? Why frequency is important?
Forget about it.
Yes? Staying top of mind is important, absolutely. So it needs to be a reminder. And keep in mind that there's clutter. One of our biggest challenges is clutter. What is clutter? Clutter, who knows? What's clutter?
All the other stuff.
What other stuff? Like video games all over the floor, or?
All the other brands and that are mixing up. Like if you're Colgate, you want everyone to know Colgate. You don't want other people to be thinking about other toothpastes.
So there's other commercials. So what happens when you're watching a program? They take a commercial break. Our 15-second commercial, which is the standard in advertising, true, there's some that are 30 seconds, there's some that are 60 seconds, and last time we said there are some that are 60 minutes, we call those infomercials, but the standard is 15 seconds, that's very common. Our 15-second commercial comes on, Malinus sees it. She's just being nice. I'm going to practice. And then what happens is right after our 15-second commercial, there's another 15-second commercial. And then another 15-second commercial. And then another 15-second commercial. And then another 15-second commercial. And another 15-second commercial. Jennifer, am I lying? I'm not lying, right? So within the course of less than 2 minutes, you've already seen 6 15-second commercials. And then the program comes back on. How are you going to remember that? How are you going to remember what the product is, what the benefits of the product are, and most importantly, what? What are the most important messages? Yeah, the brand. Because if they could remember that it's going to clean your bathroom or grow a full head of hair, or increase your level of vitamin C, that's important. But if they don't remember that the brand is Clorox, then we're wasting our money. So for example, in all advertising, the company includes, right, for all broadcast, well, except for radio, right, or print ads in magazines, we're going to show the logo, and if the company has it, the symbol. The logo is a word mark. That's currently the logo for Pepsi. Believe it or not, scary, right? It's very simplistic. This is what it looked like before. That was the logo before. And we'll talk in another course about what are some of the requirements for branding. Namely, is the logo and symbol memorable, protectable, transferable? For example, every commercial needs to communicate the brand name. And you want to have a logo and symbol that's memorable. Although a symbol is not a branding requirement. That's not a brand strategy requirement. Some companies have symbols and deploy them very effectively, and others choose not to. What we want to do is find, for our brand, segments that are going to purchase our product or service. So we have to go about this in a very methodical way, because we have a very large market. And what we want to do is divide that market into smaller segments. Now the question is, how are we going to divide the markets? Because remember, what is the criteria when we're dividing these markets? What's the criteria? Go ahead, Brandon.
They must have similar needs and wants.
Similar needs and wants is one of the requirements. So we're trying to identify segments that have similar needs and wants. And what else? Right. They must respond to the marketing mix in a similar way. Which, the marketing mix is what? The 4 P's. The marketing mix are the 4 P's. Price, place, promotion, and product. That's the marketing mix. That's the marketing mix. So we need to identify segments. We're taking an entire market and we're dividing it into submarkets. Those submarkets have got to be large. They got to be reachable. They have to be segments that are going to have similar needs and wants, and importantly, Mel pointed out that they need to respond to the marketing mix in a similar way. So when we talk about reachable, when we say that it's reachable, in other words, we have to segment the market, and we're going to talk about different ways that we could segment the market. There's a lot of different ways that we could segment the market. We're going to talk about those today. When we segment the market, the segment, which is a group of people with homogeneous, which means similar needs and wants, these people have got to be reachable. So what does that mean? That means there's got to be a way for us to communicate with them. It can't just be like interesting. Oh, we segmented the market and we've identified a segment, a very large segment, for people that have a piercing in their, don't get nervous. All right, stop. No. In their left ear. So that's like, okay, well, cool. We have a segment. There's like 25 million people that have their left ear pierced. But then, how do we reach these people? How are we going to communicate with them? What radio station do they listen to? What TV channels do they watch? What magazines do they read? What websites do they view? Now, if we know that, then we can reach them. So in the consumer behavior class, we're actually doing research. The focus of chapter 5 is about what's called body decorations and piercings and tattoos and cuttings, scarification, sometimes the term is used. So if you want to reach people that have a piercing of any kind, we need to be able to reach them. That's critical. So the segment could be large, they could have homogeneous needs and wants, they could respond to the marketing mix in a similar way, but if we can't reach them, that means there's no way for us, we don't know where to advertise, we don't know what programs we should insert our TV commercials. That means we don't know what radio stations we should run our radio spot. What magazines we should run our print ad. So that's critical. That's critical that we're able to reach them. So you can find all sorts of interesting segments. People who wear blue shoes, whatever, fascinating, right? But how are we going to reach them? Now, Mel mentioned also something very important, which is that the people in that segment, because that's what we're talking about, we're grouping together people that have similar needs and wants, have got to respond to the marketing mix in a similar way. Which means what? That at this price, at this store, this product at this promotional, either at this promotional price or, by the way, promotion, if I didn't mention that, promotion includes advertising. So it includes consumer promotions, like sales, and also advertising. But advertising doesn't start with a P. So the model that's been around for a long time indicates that promotion, sales promotions, like a BOGO is a sales promotion. You know what a BOGO is?
Yeah.
Right. Buy one, get one free. Buy one, get one is a consumer promotion. but it also includes, in this model, includes advertising. So are they going to respond to the advertising in a similar way? Which means, in other words, are they ultimately, when we say they're going to respond to the marketing mix in a similar way, in other words, at that price, at $399, are they going to buy a 16 gigabyte iPad that doesn't have a retina display and a 10 megapixel camera?
So, I'll buy.
You'll buy it? Okay, so then what we need to find out is if this is our segment, right? Will everybody in this room at that price point buy it? That's what we mean when we say, will they respond to the marketing mix in a similar way? So one of the ways that we could segment the market is by price. So we're going to talk now about different ways that we can segment the market. So right now, so far we talked about the criteria for segmenting a market. Everybody follow? So those 4 things that we talked about are the criteria for segmenting a market. Any questions about those criteria? Those 4 criteria, very important. So it's not just that we divide the market into sub-markets, but there's certain criteria. But then the question is, well, how are we going to segment the market? Well, we could segment the market by price. So very often, companies look at a particular segment So we might segment the market based on price. Like these are the price points for the iPad. So if you go into Best Buy, for example, those are the price points. This is for the new iPad. This is for the old iPad. So what is it, iPad 3 now? So this is iPad 3 and iPad 2. Now, even the fact, like I just mentioned, like I said, Best Buy. So when we talk about the place, we're talking about distribution, right? Where is the product being sold? So importantly, the customers, right, our target market is going to shop for our product at Best Buy. Now, if that's the only place that we have our product distributed and our customers don't shop, or our target market, remember we said last time that our target market are those people that we want to buy our product. And what's the target audience? What's the difference between the target market and the target audience? Who remembers? The target market is who we want to buy our product, and the target audience is who we want to reach with our advertising. We said they're not the same usually. So we talk about demographics. Geographics, psychographics, benefits, sort, and the usage rate. So demographics. So for example, we might, yep,
Does that say benefits?
benefit sort. And so we're going to talk about that in a minute. So if we segment the market by demographics, that means we look at a particular market and we decide that we're going to segment that market based on some demographic element. Which would be like what? What would be an example of, right? So it could be gender. So it could be gender. Remember, these are all specific examples that we're talking about now as it relates to demographics. Mel said gender is one type of demographic.
The income,
Yes, income,
the race,
race,
status, marital status,
ethnicity, marital status,
and where you born.
what else? Are we missing anything obvious? What about sexual orientation?
Your education also.
Education level? So these right here, if you're struggling, you say, OMG, coach, how am I going to segment this market? So one of the ways that you could segment the market is based on demographic criteria. You could use any one of these. So that means that if we segment the market, let's say by age, then that means that we're going to take the market and break it up into different age groups. If we do this, then our expectation is that each one of these segments is going to meet the criteria that we discussed. Now, they don't need to all be the same size, but we said the segment should be large, reachable, similar needs, and responds to the marketing mix in the same way. So here what we did was we took the market for what? iPads? Let's say it's iPads. We took the entire market for, well actually, that's a brand. What we should really say is, what? Tablets, right? We took the entire market for tablets in the US and we segmented that market into age groups. These are the age groups in this segment, in this market. Right? All of these are subsegments of this. So our expectation is that those that are 18 to 24 are going to have different, somewhat different needs and wants than those that are 35 to 44. They're going to, let's say for example, want a tablet, but only can or are willing to pay $3.99 as opposed to $4.99 or $5.99 or $6.99. So based on this, the company, right, this is an example of how this segmentation has come to life. So based on this, Apple introduced the iPad at these price points. So segmentation, it's not just something that's academic or theoretical, it's actionable. It has to be actionable. So however we segment the market, it's got to be something that the company can bring to life. That company could make real. How did Apple make it real? Well, based on the way they segmented the market, they introduced products at different price points. Questions? We could segment the market using any one of those criteria, but we have to ask ourselves if it's relevant, if it's meaningful. Like you might say, Coach, why did we segment the market by, instead of age, why did we segment it by gender? Well, maybe there is no difference between those two groups. Right? Remember, when we segment the market, that means within this segment, the needs are similar. The wants are similar. They respond to the marketing mix in a similar way. They're reachable. But now this is different. In this segment, the needs are similar. The assumption is that in this segment, the needs are different. In this segment, the needs are different. Yeah, go ahead, Jana.
Well, something like the iPad, let's say it's $3.99, wouldn't we also incorporate not just age, which age does play a part, but also income?
Yeah, income could be, absolutely.
Because $3.99, an iPad for $3.99, I think it can apply to more than just one age level that would want one.
Absolutely. So these are options for us. One major way that we could segment the market is by demographics. And if we do that, we could look at any of these criteria. And when we do, we need to decide whether or not it's meaningful and relevant to segment the market in that way. So if we identify, what about, we also didn't put religion. So we could list, let's say, a dozen religions. You say, Coach, look at these. In the United States, this many Christians, this many Muslims, this many Buddhists, this many Jews, this many so and so and so, right? So the question is, are those religious groups going to have different needs and wants? Because remember, within the segment, now we divided the market into segments. Within the segment, they have similar needs and wants. But what we're suggesting, once we do that and divide it into these segments, is that between them, there's differences. That's the reason why we're segmenting, is because we believe that there's differences. And if there are differences, then we need to have products at different price points. For example, just for example, that might be one of the differences, is that each of those segments want to buy a tablet, but they're each willing to pay a different price. So we could go through that analysis. We could look at marital status. Maybe there's no difference. Married, single, divorced, there's no difference. The needs and wants are the same. They say, okay, well, that's not meaningful for our product. Maybe in some categories, in some markets, or some services, that is meaningful. Maybe a married person would consume more of our product or service than a single person. So we need to do the analysis and understand which type of approach to segmentation is going to make sense. So this is one way we could do it. We could look at geographics. So geographics would mean, for example, different regions, different countries. So we have to ask ourselves, if we segment the world based on geographics, then our assumption is that the needs and wants in North America are different than the needs and wants of those in South America, and different from the needs and wants of those in Latin America, Asia, Europe. So again, what we're looking at is different ways to segment the market. But then we got to take it on a case-by-case basis to determine whether or not that's relevant to our product or service. Maybe across the world, the needs and wants are the same. Or maybe in Asia, they require stoves that are smaller because the apartments are smaller. So we got to just look at our specific product and service and determine whether or not it's relevant to segment it by demographics, to segment it by geographics. Maybe in Asia, the customers are more wealthy, so they could pay more for a particular product. And in other markets, less. But again, it depends on our product and service. So depending on the product and service that we're selling, is going to determine whether or not it's appropriate for us to segment this market this way. Psychographics, questions about that? So remember, we're talking about different ways we could segment the market. But remember, importantly, it's got to be actionable. So it can't just be interesting, it's got to be actionable, which means there's a way for the company to take that segmentation and implement it in their product line. Psychographics refers to lifestyles, hobbies, interests. So if we decide that we're going to segment the market based on psychographics, that means that we're going to say, for example, that the needs and wants are going to vary by, let's say, the type of sport. So we might, for our product, have a segmentation that looks like this: football, basketball, soccer, golf, tennis. Now, once we've segmented the market this way, how would it come to life for, let's say, for our company? Let's say we're a magazine publisher. So you might say, wow, look at this is interesting. Wow, they segmented the market, and they've identified these different segments. And the company, right, our company, believes that each of these segments has, amongst them, right, has different needs and wants. Within those segments, they have similar needs and wants, but amongst them, they have different needs and wants. They're going to respond to the marketing mix in a different way. For us, as a publisher, what do? So our business is in publishing. We publish magazines. So we say, you're right, Coach, it's got to be actionable, not just interesting. So what would we do as a company? Somebody? Anybody? Well, we would think that we've already done some research to get to this point, but now in terms of implementation, what do we do with this? Because they're like, oh yeah, this is pretty interesting. We segmented the market of the sports market by these different types of sports. So for us as a company, what do we do? Go ahead, Stephen.
Design the football, basketball, soccer, golf magazine, and
Yes! So what we're going to do is we're going to introduce a magazine for each one of those sports. So that means we're going to have a football magazine. We're going to have a magazine for soccer. Now, some people might be interested in golf and football. And so what has the magazine industry done? What is an example of what a company has done in publishing to address that?
Sports Illustrated.
Yeah, Sports Illustrated said, aha, yeah, you're smart, but what about people that have more than one interest? So, yes, there's Golf Digest, but there's also Sports Illustrated. Which is sort of the equivalent of like Colgate Total. And we're going to talk about that in a minute. You'll see why I mentioned that. What would be an example of a lifestyle?
Person's profession, maybe?
Yeah, could be their profession, but what about the proverbial soccer mom? What is that about in terms of lifestyle? What do you think? Mulan, you want to share with us something? No? Okay, no pressure. What do you think? What is that about, the soccer mom? Why do we say that's a lifestyle versus a different lifestyle? What is the expectation when we say soccer mom? So that they organize the household, they take the kids to activities like soccer, right? Soccer is very popular with young people. It's a good sport to have them engaged. Exactly. So based on that lifestyle, which is like interesting, when you do this research, it's fascinating because you can never anticipate really what the target market is going to say. And there's no idea, I've worked in marketing for a long time, there's no idea that's a great idea, except the ones that the target market say is a good idea. I don't have any good ideas, believe me. And if I don't have any good ideas, you don't have any good ideas. The only good idea is the one that the customer says they will buy. That's the only good idea. So what you described is what makes that segmentation, that lifestyle segmentation, actionable, which is Chrysler understanding that this lifestyle exists, introduced, right, and position their product, the minivan, to moms, these soccer moms. So who do they expect to buy that product? Soccer moms. And importantly, when we talk about reach, that means that we're going to have to advertise, for example, on TV channels and cable channels that are watched by soccer moms. We're going to have to advertise in magazines that are read by soccer moms. We're going to have to advertise on radio stations that soccer moms listen to. Does that make sense? Questions about that? Any soccer moms here? No, don't be shy.
How about you?
No, I'm not a soccer mom. But I know how to play soccer. I'm like, what? Watch yourself. All right, so let's talk about, no questions, right? Yes, go ahead. Mel.
What determines the way we segment the market? Is it the market or the target market? I don't know how to explain your question.
Yeah, what's gonna, the
What
target?
is the effect and what is the cause between the market and the way you who
Right.
selects the way it's going to be segmented?
The marketers are gonna decide, in the company, they're gonna decide which type of segmentation is the most relevant to the target market. What's going to be the most meaningful? Now remember, we said we could segment the market a lot of different ways, but then if at the end of the day we have 6 segments, or we have 2 segments, or 3 segments, but there's no differences amongst them, then why do we segment them? See, in some categories, it might be very meaningful to segment the market by gender. So for example, there might be some products that women will buy that men won't. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Does your imagination run away with you yet? So then in that category, it makes sense. In other categories, it doesn't make sense. Like, so for example, in the tablet market, does it make sense to segment the market by gender? Are the needs and wants of men and women different for tablets? Now, maybe yes. Maybe you might say, well, wait a minute. Yeah, women work in industries that require more advanced technology or more storage on their laptop or faster processors. Okay. But then again, maybe not. That's something that we need to examine.
Well, what about that Dr. Pepper commercial? It's just for men. They separated genders, literally, like that. It was targeted at men, Dr. Pepper. But why would they do that? A lot of women started complaining about that.
So, well, there could be a number of reasons. Now, Dr. Pepper is a brand that's been around for quite a long time. So maybe they've done research that that shows that a lot of men drink Dr. Pepper. And so now they want to reinforce that. Or maybe they found out that a lot of men don't drink Dr. Pepper, and they say, wow, most of the people that drink Dr. Pepper are women. We need to get men to start drinking that, because basically in the US, 50% of the population is male and 50% is female. Well, that means, what about the other 150 million people, in this case men, that we're assuming that potentially aren't drinking Dr. Pepper?
Well, wasn't the deal with that a lot of guys don't drink diet soda, so they wanted to try and sell diet soda to men, but they kind of went overboard with the messaging, and it backfired on them. I don't know like how it ended up, but that was what I heard. The original goal was that men don't drink as much diet soda, so they wanted to try and capitalize on that.
Could be. I don't know. Yeah, was it for a diet product? Diet soda?
It was.
I think
It was?
so, yeah.
Okay.
I remember the commercial. I don't remember the product.
Just like, for example, body wash. Believe it or not, ladies, men do take showers and they use soap, right? They use body wash, but if you look at, like, for example, Dove, which for a long time is a brand that was marketed to women, they have a body wash that's called Dove Body Wash for men. And it's not in a pink bottle. It's in a nice dark gray, masculine-looking bottle.
Same thing with Axe. They started making food.
Okay, that's also a good example. All right, before we go, let's just try to touch on benefits sought. And if we have another extra minute, we'll talk about usage rate. So, for example, in the toothpaste category, what companies did, so we're looking at the category toothpaste. What the marketers in this category did was they segmented the market by benefit sought. And they say, well, toothpaste is toothpaste. But they said, no, what we did was we did research and we understood that customers buying toothpaste have different requirements. Some are buying toothpaste to fight cavities. Some are buying toothpaste to fight plaque. Some are buying toothpaste to fight tartar. Some are buying toothpaste to get white teeth. Some are buying toothpaste for
Sensitivity?
fresh breath. And there's some for sensitivity. So these are segments. The companies in this category segmented the market by what we're calling benefit sought. What is the benefit sought? What is the benefit that people want? Is they want whitening. They want a toothpaste that whitens. They want a toothpaste that's going to give them fresh breath. These are the benefits that customers want. They segmented the market this way. That's interesting, right? So let's say a certain percentage, we'd call that market sizing. Market sizing is when we quantify the size of the market. So importantly, when we segment the market, once we segment the market, what we try to do is quantify the sizes of those markets. So this could be 100 million, this could be 50 million, this could be 25 million people, this could be 75 million people, this could be 25 million people. So it could be by the number of people when we quantify the size of the market, or it could be the dollar size of the market. That's known as market sizing. So the first thing we do is segment the market. Then we quantify the size of the market, which is known as market sizing. Then we engage in targeting. Targeting is when we select segments that we're going to focus on. So for example, remember when we segmented the market by geographics? We said North America, South America, Latin America, Europe, Asia. Well, maybe we're not going to focus on all of those. What's going to be one of the determining factors is the size and the growth rate of the market. So maybe in Latin America, the segment for our product or service is not very large. So what are the segments that we're going to want to focus on? Well, you're going to want to focus on usually segments that are large and that are growing. Remember last time we looked at the BCG model? So it doesn't mean that we're going to focus, we've segmented the market, but then it's up to us to decide which markets we're going to try to penetrate. It doesn't need to be all of them. Strategically, we need to decide we're going to focus on this one, we're going to focus on this one, we're going to focus on this one, because those segments are large and they're growing rapidly.
But that doesn't mean they don't focus on other ones.
Right, doesn't mean that you're not, but we're going to still quantify the size of the market and then make a decision about which ones we're going to focus. Because logistically, it may not be feasible to focus on all the segments. All right, so briefly before, as a wrap up now, this is actionable. Remember I said it can't just be that we segment the market in a way that's interesting. So it could be interesting, right, Jesse? It could be interesting, okay. But it's got to be actionable. So what did the companies do based on this? Is they introduced products known as, right, they marketed the products as Colgate whitening, Colgate that fights tartar. So this we're talking about, we don't have any brands mentioned here. We just mentioned the category, which is toothpaste, the different segments, and then it's got to translate, it's got to come alive in our marketing strategy. So based on this, this company, Colgate, based on this segmentation, this analysis, this research, they introduced a product called Colgate Whitening, which is toothpaste that presumably is going to help make your teeth white. And they also have a product that is specifically designed to fight tartar. So if you just even, you go into Target, you can see on the shelf all these different products. So one of the key takeaways for us is, once we segment the market, which is basically an analysis on our part, it's got to be meaningful. It's got to be something that the company can bring to life in their marketing strategy. It can't just be interesting. The reason we do that segmentation is so that we could then develop a marketing plan based on that. You guys ready to bounce? All right, have a great weekend. See you next time. Do good things. Holla!